Okay, hello everyone. I'm Myrna Haskell, Executive Editor of Sanctuary Magazine. This is an online publication with a focus on the arts, philanthropy, health and wellness, culture and community. You can find us at sanctuary-magazine.com. Today we're hosting a work-life balance workshop. And the reason we wanted to talk about this topic is so many people are struggling with this. Whether you're part of the sandwich generation or perhaps a caregiver for a spouse or elderly parents or a host of other issues, right? Folks have a lot of challenges when it comes to balancing those personal responsibilities with work responsibilities and then wearing a lot of hats and juggling a lot of things at once. And lots of times what goes wrong is your own self-care and taking time to de-stress and rethink time management and all of that good stuff. So I want to thank my awesome presenters today. We are going to do subtopics one at a time and leave some time for a couple of questions after each subtopic. And then at the end, once you've digested everything, we could see if we can answer a few questions at the end as well. Okay, so my first presenter is Dr. Sherry Kelly. And her topic is, and I'm going to use my glasses here so I can see, a backwards design approach to work-life balance. And when I saw backwards design, Sherry, I was like, ooh, so I'm really interested in this one. Sherry is a licensed clinical psychologist and clinical neuropsychologist with more than 30 years of experience working with children and parents. Her book, Your Tiger Inside, which, by the way, is excerpted in Sanctuary Magazine, provides an easy-to-understand approach for children to learn to embrace their emotions. She is also the founder of Mind and Heart Coaching and is an expert panelist for Sanctuary. So welcome, Sherry. We're excited to hear what you have to say to help us out in this area.
Myrna, thank you so much for inviting me to join you and your wonderful colleagues tonight. I'm so excited to be here, especially to talk about such an important topic, work-life balance. And as you said in your introduction, I'm going to sort of give you a backward design approach to work-life balance. And that's sort of an interesting way of looking at your work-life balance. And I'm going to set it up first by asking those of you here tonight to think about what you envision as work-life balance. Is it, a balance that's in between two opposing forces, work and life? Are they opposing each other? And why are they opposing each other? Should they even be opposing each other? Is your work-life balance supposed to be, I guess, more seamless? Do they have to fight against each other? When you think about that, I want you to also ask yourself another question. Think of an adjective to describe your past 24 hours. What comes to mind, Myrna? You made a face.
Okay, I'll unmute myself. Well, stress.
Stress. Okay.
Yeah, we have a lot going on right now with four elderly parents, two on my husband's side and two on my side. So that's sort of put a wrench into everything about how we're doing things right now.
So those are huge stressors. Those are life stressors. Those are life stressors. And when I ask that question to audiences, that's pretty much the number one answer I get is stress. And there's an old proverb, I think it might come from Buddhism, that stress is resistance to what is. And what is that pervasive stressor? What is that force in your life? What is that truth in your life that you might even be resisting? And so when we're trying to think about our work-life balance and our lives in general, what are the truths? What are the realities that we might be resisting? What do we fight against? And oftentimes people might say, well, it's time. I don't have enough time. Or I can't meet the expectations of everyone. So I want you to think about this. What are those truths that you might be resisting? What are those things in your life that without which you would have more balance in your life? That's a tough question. And usually there's probably three main things in your life that without which our lives would be more in balance. And those are usually external things, not having enough time, trying to meet other people's expectations, having, medical stressors, for example. So if you were to think about the three things in your life that you are most in control of right now, what do you think they would be? So Myrna, you might know because I've shared this with you, but if we're thinking about what are the three things in your life you actually are in control of, what would they be?
I would say,
Go ahead.
your reactions.
Yes, your responses, your reactions. Yeah. And that falls under one of the big ones. So according to Dr. Jonathan Fader, who's a famous sports psychologist, there's three main categories you're in control of: your attitude, your preparation, and your effort. And if you think of those three letters, attitude, preparation, effort, it spells APE, APE. So you can remember it by thinking of a big fuzzy ape. But those are the three things you're most in control of. And when you look at work-life balance, you think about how much energy am I wasting on things I have no control over, right?
Yeah.
Probably a lot. And so when this feeling in life comes at you where you're feeling you're really off balance, one of the things I want you to ask yourself is, am I putting so much energy in these things that I'm not in control of? Am I spending 90% of my energy worrying about things I have no control of?
If
And
I could interrupt, I feel like that's a typical one, just personally for me. It's the stress, right, of everything going on and taking that all in and having it affect other areas.
And it's funny,
and
Myrna, because it compounds the stress, because if you take it into the evening time and you don't sleep, the lack of sleep exacerbates the stress, and then you're in this
Absolutely.
cycle of all these things that you
Absolutely,
can't
Laura.
control. Why are you thinking about them at night? But it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
and exactly. And as Laura said, you start thinking about them at night and you start to ruminate and you get into a vortex and you can't get out. So when you start to do that, Myrna, what helps you to get out of that vortex of thinking and overthinking?
I don't know. I try a couple of different things. I try to do like breath work. I step away from my desk. I've been doing that lately. I took a mental health break this weekend where I did like nothing. I binge watched Criminal Minds, to be honest. I
That's
just like needed to shut my brain off,
okay.
and not think about everything else that's
That's
going on.
exactly. So you took that time to sort of disconnect.
It helped.
And you
It
said
helped.
you said you shut your brain off. Did you also shut your phone off?
Yeah, I shut my phone off a lot. I'm actually not, that's not a problem for me, really. It's more, I consider myself sort of an empath, and so I take in other people's problems, anxieties, hurt
Okay.
into myself a lot. I do that a lot, so.
Okay. So you know me. One of my favorite ways of shutting that rumination vicious cycle of overthinking off is to go into the what, not why game. And when we overthink, we tend to ask ourselves the why. Why did this happen to me? Why am I feeling so stressed out? Why am I so burned out? Why am I feeling so down? Why am I so anxious? And remember, I've told you that these emotions, even the emotions of being stressed and overwhelmed, those are alerts just for you. Those are your main alarm bells ringing to tell you that you might need to change, or you might need to get your needs met in another way. It might be telling you of a fear you won't get it all done, fear that something might happen, fear of failing, fear of losing, fear of being excluded. So you ask yourself the 3 whats. And so here's another strategy I'm going to ask for you. It's the 3 whats. What is this feeling alerting you to? Could be a fear that I'm afraid of failure. This feeling is I'm afraid of messing up. I'm afraid of not fulfilling someone's expectations. The second what is this feeling? What are these emotions telling me I might need that I'm not getting? What's this telling me I might need from someone else to help me? And then the third question, the third what is, what action can I take to get those needs met? And so we move out of the vortex of, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed, into what we call in psychology behavioral activation. Okay. Now,
And it's a practice.
It is, you have to practice, because changing the way your brain has a default mode is not a passive endeavor. You actually have to practice it. But you can recode your brain for more joy and more happiness. And it takes practice to think differently. And if I can, as I said to you before, if I can give you one strategy, I think shifting from the why, which is sort of judgmental and self-blaming in many ways, to the what, leads us to finding those answers of what it is we really need, and then what we can do to get those needs met. And that's a big part of what my book is about for kids, right? So what does this have to do with using backwards design to find greater work-life balance? Here it is. I want you to stop living your life by accident and want you to live it on purpose. A lot of times when we are feeling overwhelmed by stress and we don't feel we have work-life balance, we have to think about, are we living our life on purpose, or are we living it by accident? Am I just waiting for the next wave to hit my boat in this journey of life? And a lot of people go through life by accident. Instead of having a specific destination, a specific goal, or goals in mind of what we want to achieve. So if we ground ourselves first and think about, what's the purpose of my life right now? For some of us, it's, well, I need to care for my family, or I need to care for my elderly parents. Or my purpose is, I really want to think about my second half of life and achieve my dreams that maybe I put on hold to raise kids. And everybody does need to think about what their purpose and what their destination is in life. And so oftentimes when we feel off balance, it's because we don't know what that destination is or what our goals are. And if we don't know what our goals are or what our destination is, we can't make the right choices. It's hard to decide what choice to make if you don't know what your goal is, because the right choice is always the choice that gets you one step closer to that goal or one step closer to that destination. Does that make sense? So backward design is sort of like, well, where do I want to end up? What's my best life scenario a year from now? What do I want my life to look like a year from now or 10 years from now? Maybe 10 years from now, I'll be living in Rhinebeck in a beautiful house and going to Gigi's at night for dinner.
And then you'll see us more often, Sherry.
Yeah. But, when you have that destination, okay, so let's, maybe it's, I want to be that grandma. I want to be that grandmother that has more time for her grandchildren, that spends more time. Or maybe I want to spend more time with my partner. So if that's where I want to be a year from now, then what do I need to have in place 10 months from now? What needs to be in place? Well, I better, have a different work schedule, or I better make sure that I have coverage for on the weekends so I can spend that time with my family. Where do I have to be 8 months from now? So instead of using the timeline going, traditionally left to right, I'm going to start a year from now and I'm going to use backward design. And I'm going to go right to left and figure out, where do I need to be? Okay, I want to be here a year from now. Where do I need to be 10 months from now? 9 months, 8 months? What do I have to have in place? And that will really help me take those actions that are achievable. And it's going to make that destination more real. And because I've got that goal in mind, because I have that destination in mind, it's going to help me make easier choices, because I'll know the right choice is always the one that gets me closer to that destination, that envisioned life I have a year from now. And that is empowering.
Okay. So,
What are you thinking? You think that that's something that you might
is part of this setting your goals so that where you envision you want to be 6 months from now or 12 months from now, deciding those things that are in your life that are getting in the way, and that's why you're so stressed out?
Well, the first that's a great question, is to decide and really focus on what your values are. So instead of deciding what's getting in your way, instead of focusing on the obstacles, I want you to focus on the destination.
Okay.
Because if you focus on the obstacles, you will never get to where you want to be.
That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. And so as Simon Sinek says, and he has a great video on this on destination, when you really know what your goal is, when you really know what your destination is, whether it's a year from now or 5 years from now, the obstacles don't matter. You still know where you'll go around the obstacles. You'll deal with the obstacles. My values, my purpose are what matters the most.
Okay. Can we hear from, welcome, Sade. Do you have any questions?
No question. Thank you, Myrna. I'm so sorry I was late. I thought this started at 7. I apologize for my
That's
tardiness.
okay. Do you have a question for Dr. Sherry?
No questions. So far, this is an awesome webinar, so thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Miss Tallene, are you there? Are you there?
It really sounds like she's talking about the beginnings of a business and stay focused on the end goal. So I really appreciate how she's framing it.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good point, Tallene. I agree.
It very much applies to business, and totally. And I was going to say that both Tallene and Laura can, relate to that, is, using backward design in business.
For sure.
And I will give you an example of how, you can use it in your personal life. In Myrna, if I can just sort of explain, how I used it for work-life balance when I had 2 parents at the same time in hospice care.
Sure.
And as an example, Myrna, you walked that journey with me in support. Thank you. And with that, my goal was to keep my parents comfortable. My main purpose was to give them dignity and comfort at the end of their life, and to show my love for them, and demonstrate that love as much as they could receive it. And so I knew that that's at the end of their life, I wanted to have certain things in place. And so in order to do that, I clarified my values. I also clarified my expectations. What did I expect of myself as a daughter? What did I expect of my partner, husband, for him to support me? What did I expect of the caregiving at the hospice? What did I expect from my team, my trust and estate team, for example? What did I expect from them? Was I expecting them to still be awake or alert at the end? And maybe that wasn't a fair expectation. And so I examined and I clarified my expectations. And then with those expectations, I was able to really, I think, realistically decide, okay, well, what's realistic for me to put in place 10 months from now or 6 months from now? And what do I have to put in place to make that happen? And where do I expect to be at the very end? Do I expect to be with them at their bedside? What if I'm not? Where do I expect to be 10 months from now? What kind of support will I need 10 months from now?
That's
God,
big. Support.
right?
Yeah.
And so I was able to think ahead and say, yeah, 10 months from now, at the end, I'm going to need babysitters. I am going to need neighbors to come in and, help with, cooking meals maybe. I'm going to need, to get a place to stay near the hospice center. And so you're able to really start planning backwards. And it was really integral. That's just one example, integral in helping me maintain that work-life balance of, okay, I have a work life, but my private life is centered in knowing that I've got this all figured out, and I've got the support in place. I'm not waiting for that emergency to try to find support.
Yes, that's really important, because then you're walking a tightrope the whole time,
and
right?
so getting back to what I first said in the beginning, I felt a greater sense of control because I prepared. I was even prepared for the attitude I was going to have. And yes, that takes effort.
Yeah.
So I hope
Wow.
that was an example of how to
It's a huge help. It's a huge help. Is that we're going to readdress at the end, Sherry, since we have a little bit more time because we lost one of our presenters. Is there anything else you want to say at this point?
No, I look forward to questions and comments. And
yeah, so if everybody just takes little notes, we'll have a little time at the end, and we have a little surprise giveaway at the end as well. So thank you, Sherry. That was extremely helpful. Thank you so much. Okay, so now our next presenter is Dr. Carla Manley, and her subject is letting go of perfectionism. I need this one too, Dr. Carla. Carla is a clinical psychologist and wellness expert based in Sonoma County, California. So thank you for, working with our time today, Carla. In addition to her clinical practice, she is deeply invested in her roles as an author, consultant, advocate, speaker, and podcaster. Her fourth book, The Joy of Imperfect Love, empowers readers to embrace a life-shifting journey into authentic love with science-based concepts and actionable exercises. She is also an expert panelist for Sanctuary. So thank you both for all you do as expert panelists, both Sherry and Carla. I appreciate it. So, Dr. Carla, you're on.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll talk about the joy of being imperfect. And so many times, I know myself, I'm a recovering perfectionist, probably always will be. So if we look at where we learned that we needed to be perfect, and most of us have some sort of story that led us to that place, that we needed to be perfect kids so we didn't upset the parents, that we need to be perfect to be loved. Whatever that story is, it's important to understand it, to make friends with it, so that you don't think that it's something that is defective within you, but it's more like everything else about who we are. It's something that's learned. So that's a really important piece about perfectionism, that it's not something we're born with. We don't come out of the womb wanting to be perfect. We come out of the womb wanting to be loved. So I'll tell you about who I am, and it's important also, as you look at this slide, to think about who are you? Because so many times we define ourselves as a father, mother, worker, student, doer in the world. Yet it's also important, and I fit one of them in on this slide, that I'm an eternal optimist. And I remember growing up, my dad would always say that that was a bad thing. He'd say, "Girlie, you need to take off those rose-colored glasses." And yet I've learned that even though it may be an imperfect way to see the world, I'm not seeing it absolutely clearly, because I'm seeing it through that lens of optimism. But we all have lenses, and some people see the world through a lens of perfectionism, which is something I learned to do, but I've let that go and try and really see it through a lens of it's okay to be imperfect. It's because we are all imperfect. When we start looking at the lenses that we see, the lens that we have on to see ourselves, the lens to see the world, it helps us create a much greater sense of ease because we're aware of who we are. And then we can look at the parts of ourselves that we want to let go of. And I think that's really important. What parts of you do you want to breathe into? And that may be, I know for me, and we're all moving through different stages of life. Is it time to breathe into being a mother? Is it time to breathe into career? Is it time to breathe into being more, of a lover? Whatever it might be, and it doesn't need to be one thing, but I think when we see that we can breathe into things without being perfect at them. And so next, these are the pieces we'll really be looking at a little more in depth. Which we've already started to talk about, defining perfectionism. And as I say that piece, I'd really invite you to already be thinking about how you define perfectionism, what that means to you. Because the dictionary definition, which we'll get to in a minute, is helpful, but it's not everything. What is really more important is, what does perfectionism mean to you? And then we'll talk very briefly about how to release perfectionism, and then segue into change, resetting, and I love this one, loving yourself as a lifestyle, and loving yourself imperfectly as a lifestyle. And I think that that's key, because if we're always fighting that imperfection, then we get stuck. And we'll talk more about that in just a sec. So, defining perfectionism. Perfectionism, one of the dictionary definitions, is to be free of flaws and defects. So this is where it's so important to look at your inner dialogue. And what does it mean to you to be perfect? Often, these are some of the scripts, the internal self is saying, I should always be aware, happy, peaceful, confident, whatever that voice is. The external self, how you present to the world. I should always be kind, attractive, put together, whatever that voice is telling you. The relational self, how we show up with friends, family, our romantic partners, our kiddos. I should always be giving, doing, and perfect at my tasks. And I don't know if any of this resonates with parts of you, but I know, especially, for me, all of these pieces are in play at any time, during the day, and then I have to look at them and say, okay, this piece of me is coming up again. And I know where this came from. This came from childhood, where I learned that I had to be perfect to be loved. I had to be perfect to fit in. I had to be perfect to be seen. In this big family of 10, the more perfect I was, the better chance I had of, being okay. And so these get hardwired in. And the more we become aware of where they came from, no shame, no blame to mom, dad, brothers, sisters, whomever, but more, oh, I can see it now. And through that lens, I see where my perfectionism came from. And I see that I really might not need those coping strategies anymore, those defenses. And so in that way, we can start realizing we can let go of this ideal of perfectionism. So we'll talk now about that unique world of you.
Okay.
And so this is where it gets fun to, on a scale of 1 to 10, look at how each of these bits affects your life. On a scale of 1 to 10, how often do you strive for perfection, every day, on the average day? How, is it a 2? Is it a 10? Is it a 5? Where are you? Because if you think about walking with, perfect posture with a plate on your head, that's a fun exercise to do maybe a couple times a week. But if you're doing that every day, trying to stand perfectly and walk perfectly, it takes a lot of, it's a lot of stress on you. Not only is that stressful, but it's taking you away from other tasks. And your energy is all being funneled into that one area. So just gently ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how often do I strive for perfection on the average day? Another question to ask yourself, because it's related to perfectionism, on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed do you tend to feel? And we were just talking about how stressful it can be to try to maintain and do everything, all at once, how difficult it can be, body, mind, and spirit, to think I should be able to be a perfect mom and a perfect worker and a perfect housekeeper and a perfect caregiver for my aging parents, whatever's happening. I should be that's really a stressful load. And then another one to ask yourself is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied and fulfilled do I generally feel? And what you will often find is that the higher you are on perfectionism and stress, the lower you are on satisfaction and fulfillment. So it's an interesting way to look at where in your life you are pulling away from feelings of satisfaction and fulfillment because you're being driven by stress and perfectionism, and the perfectionism that feeds the stress. Not that stress doesn't come from other areas. Okay, so here is how perfectionism feeds stress. The good news, when we're striving to be our best selves, that's a source of self-growth. But we often confuse being our best selves, that ever-evolving, imperfect self, with being perfect. And they're two very different things. One is seeing that we are these beautiful gemstones that are evolving and getting polished over time. But perfectionism wants us to be that perfect diamond every day, all the time. But that's not what life is about. Life doesn't create us as perfect diamonds. The goal is that we just keep polishing who we are. The bad news is that perfectionism feeds a sense of anxiousness, depression. We aren't enough. We'll never be enough. I should do more. I should strive more. And of course, this cycle works against our emotional, mental, physical, relational health, and our spiritual connection, our connection to the spirit within others, and of course, our connection to, if we have a higher power that we believe in, really interrupts that connection. So you can ask yourself, how does perfectionism, whatever degree of it you have, how does it feed stress in my life? What generally triggers my perfectionism? And what can I do to reduce this cycle? And it's really important, especially that second question, what generally triggers my perfectionism? Because if you become aware of what triggers your perfectionism, and for all of us, it's different things. It might be a family member that triggers it. It might be social media. It might be a partner. It might be somebody at work. It might be a combination of those things. It might be looking in the mirror and saying, oh, I don't recognize myself. I don't look like I did 30 years ago. Well, notice what triggers your perfectionism, so that you can really pay attention without judgment, that when that comes up, that you can let that go. You can notice it, not feed it, just let it go. Oh, I did that again. Okay, I can see that. No shame, no blame. I'm going to let that go. The more we do that, we end up feeling more alive and accepting of who we are. So if we look at this little fact sheet, 77% of women prioritize their family needs over their own. 49% of people believe that work-life balance is a myth. 67% of women say they wish they could say no more often, but 54% feel as if they can't take a break or take a rest because they feel guilty. So when we look at how all of this is related to perfectionism, that we feel like we need to always be the perfect mother, perfect daughter, that we feel like we need to have this ideal of work-life balance that really feels myth-like in quality. And then that part where if we say no, if we have boundaries, if we aren't that perfect person to everybody, that it somehow means we're a failure. But learning to attune to the self isn't a failure. That's actually a success. It's not selfish. It's being aware of the self. It's being self-full so that you can then recharge, take care of yourself, let go of that thought of needing to be perfect, and really just be your best self in that moment. And that best self will look different at different times. And again, releasing perfectionism and remembering that we don't need to love ourselves perfectly to love others well. And we don't need to love others perfectly to love ourselves well. So it works both ways. So if you let go of that need to be perfect, how would your life change? If you can accept, and I really love the idea of the good enough mother that came from Donald Winnicott, where when we realize, this comes from attachment theory, when we realize that when we love good enough, not trying for perfection, but good enough, attuning to the self and to others more often than not, that's not perfect, because there is never a perfect for humans, but that does leave us that space of getting it wrong now and again, and making friends with that, and that it's okay to get it wrong. What we want to do when we get it wrong or make a misstep or stumble is to learn from that, and then release it. Okay, how do we change? The 5 categories that I think it's really fun to change on when we're looking at releasing perfectionism is the emotional world, mental world, physical world, a relational world, and the spiritual realm. And when we start looking at our emotional world and practice making space for our emotions without judgment, for many of us, we learned that we had to be, especially women, had to learn to be happy all the time. Men often had to learn to be okay or tough all the time. And so some of the other emotions are more difficult, like being angry or sad. And so learning to make space for all of our emotions as they come up helps us really honor the truth that as women, as whoever we are, that making space for emotions like anger, that's healthy. There's a message within that emotion. It doesn't mean we need to use the anger in unhealthy ways, but we can get to know and listen to the messages within each emotion. And the mental space, noticing how our mindsets, I need to get it perfectly, I need to do it right, or I'm a failure, whatever that mindset is. Noticing our mental lingo, that script that's going on inside the brain, just learning to notice it, giving yourself permission in the physical realm to be your natural self, to let your light shine as you are, as you go about your day, that you don't need to dress perfectly, put on your makeup perfectly, exercise perfectly, that it's just being your authentic self. People really tend to notice your light more than what you're wearing. And I remember somebody once was talking, and I'd never heard this phrase, and they said, "Oh, pretty is as pretty does." And I thought, wow, that really captures it, that when we are behaving in an attractive way, a way that's authentic and light and kind, meaning letting our light shine, that is when I believe we are at our most attractive, and it doesn't have anything to do with perfectionism. And then in the relational world, striving to first start with being our authentic selves and noticing when there's that urge to try to be perfect in order to conform to what somebody in a situation wants us to be. And that's a really big one. And then, of course, the spiritual realm, just working gently on nurturing that practice of being. It's one of the reasons I like yoga so much. It's a practice. It's never a perfect. We're using our poses to breathe into the body, breathe into the spirit, and continue that practice as a reminder that it's about being present. It's not about being perfect. So these are just a few of the ways that you can learn to reset with what I call mindful acceptance, and accepting the truth that learning to be and accept your imperfect, ever-evolving self, that's the foundation. That really looking at letting go of that idea as you look in the mirror or you look at your work product and saying, I want just my best in this moment, whatever I bring now, my learning, my acceptance, I want that to be good. Not good enough, but good. And then mindfully noticing, accepting that you can't and you don't need to be everything to everyone. If you try that game, I've been there, done that, you don't end up pleasing anybody. And most important, you're not pleasing yourself. And I've talked about this one. It's a really important piece, that accepting that it's natural and healthy to make errors in life. The goal for us is to learn from the errors. That as long as we're learning just even a glimmer of something from falling down or making a stumble, that is really, to me, the nourishment of life, having the humility and the confidence to say, okay, I stumbled there. Now what can I do differently? And sometimes there's nothing we can do differently. And accepting the truth that comparing yourself, and this is a big one, to other people or some fictional ideal is the enemy of self-love and well-being. Because when we compare ourselves to other people, whether it's on social media, whether it's somebody we see in a magazine, a movie, a friend who we see and we love their life and think they have the perfect life, we never know what's going on behind closed doors. And even if it is perfect, which it's likely not, it's really more important to put that energy into breathing into our lives and what we want in our own lives. And then this is a really important piece, and I love it. It's a big piece in my fourth book, The Joy of Imperfect Love, is learning to slow down, to look at the interplay. And I use the term feelings, even though feelings are different from emotions, but I'll use them synonymously here. Noticing how our feelings, how we're feeling about something affects your thoughts, affects your mindset, then affects your energy and affects your actions. If you can learn to interrupt that cycle of anywhere along the way, that you could actually create a really healthy outcome. So for example, you wake up, you look in the mirror and you look at your face and you go, ugh, I feel awful looking at that person. Ugh. So you're feeling it's a negative energy. Maybe you're disappointed. Maybe you're sad. Then your thoughts come up and say, I should look better, or I should be better. Then your mindset gets kind of cloudy and gray, and your energy might be depleted and exhausted. And then your actions will be carried that way. But if you notice when you're looking in that mirror and you're going, I'm feeling kind of yucky today, I look awful. And you go, oh, wait a second. Let me catch myself there. And if you catch yourself in any stage, you can then say, I want to look at that face with love and compassion. That face has met me every morning since the day I was born. Oh my goodness. Thank you, face, for being here. Thank you, body, for being here. So just by catching that at one step in that process, it could be as late as your energy. It could be even while you're engaging in an action and saying, oh, wait, I want to catch this. I want to shift it away from this sense that I need to be some perfect image, but instead come from this place of gentleness and kindness. And what this does, as you'll notice in the slide, it helps you get away from that black and white thinking of perfect. If I'm not perfect, then I'm awful, right? And it lets you be in that gray space of imperfection, which is where we all naturally are anyway. And then strive to release the negative energy attached to those thoughts, and being careful the whole way along of self-judgment, because that's where the negativity really creeps in. Because again, it's that image that if I'm not perfect in some way in my relationship, my life, my mental status, whatever it is, I'm not good enough. And that's that black and white thinking that really drains our energy. So just getting into a gentle practice of noticing when it comes up and shifting it. And so this is, to me, just looking at just a few tips of how you can really work to shift, just striving to be you, practicing being you, embracing self-respect, honesty, and transparency, listening to your inner voice, really tuning in and listening to what feels healthy, not perfect, but healthy, and nurturing daily self-reflection, letting go of that impossible ideal of perfection, focusing on being your best self, remembering that life is not about having more or doing more. It's about finding that sweet spot that for you is going to be different from anybody else, where you have joy, love, and that sense of balance. And it's not a one and done. It's something that we keep working on as we evolve through life, because life keeps changing. And so just some pieces. And then at the very end, Myrna's going to help us give away a set of my imperfect love cards to help you foster that process of noticing your feelings, thoughts, mindset, energy, and actions, because it is a process. It's a process of rewiring your brain to learn to slow down, let go of the things that feed perfectionism, and really instead breathe into the things that allow you to feel more present and more alive in your own life. So that's it.
Thank you. Okay, there we go.
There I am. So and I hope that makes sense. I was trying to weave through it very, very quickly. But again, the idea is that perfectionism, really, that idea weighs us down, and it weighs us down within and within our relationships, because then we end up expecting perfection out of partners and kids. So when we do that self-work, it ends up really helping us grow in every area of life.
I had just a couple takeaways that really shouted out to me. Can I share them for a moment?
Please.
Self-judgment. In my case, tiny little mistakes will get to me. As an editor, I've been doing this all of my life, and rereading things, and I have fabulous writers, but just expecting everything to be perfect, and then there's always going to be something, but then beating yourself up about it when it's just, as you said, natural and healthy to make mistakes, right? Slowing down was big for me. And then also being present, not perfect. I liked that line. So I think there's a lot of perfectionists out there that beat themselves up. It's just a comment, not really a question. I know I'm not alone in that.
Oh, absolutely, Myrna. And I could see, even as because I was making some edits, I was taking the presentation and narrowing it down for this space. And I saw, as I was presenting, that I saw at least 2 errors. And my brain is going, oh no, you made errors. It's not perfect. And so I'm laughing at myself like, hey, that part of me, it's okay. They're errors. You can correct them if they're that important. We all make them. But you're right. They come in and they want to distract us and tell us that we should have done X, Y, or Z, should have done it differently. And instead, they're really good reminders that the world didn't fall apart because I have a comma instead of the closed parentheses, that I have an extra apostrophe. Everything's okay.
Yeah. And I think that what Sherry just talked about and what you talked about too, and this idea, I think Sherry mentioned, like, are you doing enough? Say you're taking care of someone. Was I there enough? Did I do enough? But if you're prepared and you say, this is what I'm able to do and this is what I expect, and you have it mapped out already and you know where you're going to be in the future, then there's less of that unexpected kind of angst that you feel that you didn't do enough or you weren't good enough and that's why the mistake is there. I'm just kind of seeing a little bit of similarities in how we have to change our way of thinking to not be stressed, because really the whole work life balance thing can become a ball of stress. And I think that's why so many people want to talk about it and hear about it, and why we had actually readers write in, could you do something on this? Because so many people out there are struggling with the challenges of this.
Absolutely. And even the term work-life balance assumes that we're going to be able to create it, like the old teeter-totters, that
Yeah.
it's going to be, or the scales of justice, that it's going to be equal. And in truth, there are times when work is going to be 80 and family life is 20, and there are going to be times there's a health issue or aging parents, whatever it is, and family comes up to 80 and we've got to let work be at 20. And it was interesting, actually, last night my husband was talking to me about an employee, a key employee, that took off for paternity leave. And he's like, oh my goodness, whatever, right? And I was like, well, that person in that moment decided that work needs to be down near a zero, and that being a dad to this new little kiddo is up at 100. And I think that's a good way of reminding ourselves it's not always going to be this perfect balancing act. And that's the part of, where a lot of what Dr. Sherry says really fits with. In fact, I was taking notes when Dr. Sherry was talking.
I know, I've been taking a lot of notes.
I need to remember this. I need to remember that. Oh, I like this. And so when we look at that and just accept we're always learning, we're always growing. And the more we're able to get support, like this beautiful webinar, that the more we're able to get support and get out of our own heads and see things a bit differently, that's how we learn and evolve. So,
does anybody else have any comments or things they want to say about this? It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to say anything?
I have a quick question on the flip side.
Go ahead, Sally.
As someone that has a lot of friends who are perfectionists, what can I say to those perfectionists when I notice that they're being perfectionists and perhaps they need to stop and take care of themselves?
It's such a good question. And I think that depending upon each person, we know sometimes people where no matter how kind-hearted our comment is, they are not in a place of being accepting. And so I think that first it's important to read the room with that person so that we're not saying something that somehow triggers them to be trying harder to be perfectionist, but maybe taking them aside or having coffee and saying, hey, I noticed this. And there's no judgment here, but I noticed that you seem to be leaning a lot into this area of your life. And I just want you to know that I really appreciate the times when I'm with you where you're, a little softer, or you're, seem to be more fully present instead of trying to dot every I and cross every T. And I just wanted you to know that I enjoy that about you. And so I think that when we remind someone that we like them in their imperfectness, we like them when they are more fully present instead of putting so much energy into getting it right. And then you're actually giving them a compliment that may feel disarming. So does that sound helpful?
Good job.
Thank you. I wonder if I do this
That
well.
was very helpful. That's a great way to.
Carla, Dr. Carla, I echo what Myrna said. I just love being present, not perfect. It's just such a wonderful message. And I just had a question. And tell me what you think about the connection between perfectionism and people pleasing, because that also gets us in that trap of not having that work-life balance because we're so not only intent on perfectionism, but people pleasing.
Absolutely, Dr. Sherry. That relates to the piece where I was talking about trying not to be everything to everyone because you can't. And that, especially for women, I believe, I mean, I see it in men as well, but that tendency, and I know this script all too well, of trying to be everything to everyone. And you end up sometimes getting it about 95% for everyone else, but close to 0% for yourself. And so I think that people pleasing, when we notice that it's coming up, and track where it's coming from. I know when mine comes up, it is always coming from that childhood space, that little girl who was trying so hard to be so good so she would be loved and accepted. And I tell her, hey, it's okay. I got this now. I got this. You can go ahead and sit right here. I have this for us. So I talked to her, that little girl that tried so hard and never succeeded in being loved by being perfect. And then it allows me to breathe into that sense of, if I let go of pleasing everybody and come back and just tune into what I really feel is best right now. And when I come from that place of doing what I truly believe in my body, mind, and spirit is best. And I think, the holidays are a really good example where we're, this extended family wants this, and this family wants this, and this is, and we're trying to please everybody. But it ends up, we're trying so hard that everybody's crotchety because nobody got their way. And so instead, coming from that place of, this year, this is what I'm able to offer. I'm able to offer this. And if that sounds good to you, I welcome you. And so we're coming from that place of really being attuned to the self and what the self can offer, instead of being like Gumby. I don't know if you remember Gumby, that green thing that was always getting pulled in different directions. We're actually coming from that place. And it's not somebody might say, oh, well, that's selfish. Oh, no. It's what I call self-full. When we do a scan, what is right for me? Where I am now. And that may be that we have 20 people at a table. It may mean that we only have 3 people at a table. It may mean we're flying somewhere. It may not. But when we come from that place, then the next year, we're likely to have more bandwidth, or the next holiday to lean in a little bit more to what other people want. So I really look at it as coming back, because when we're really mindful and self-full, then we tend to be so much more able to be present and enjoying whatever comes our way.
Yeah, and you know what, ladies, too, that gets back to that 77%, I think, was the statistic, Carla, that you shared, of women put family over self. That comes to the people pleasing, right?
It's
trying to, and yeah.
It does. And we have to remember, when we're doing that, we're modeling for everyone around us that is what a good woman or a good dad. So we're modeling it for our sons, we're modeling it for our daughters, we're modeling it for our own parents. And we change that paradigm and go and say, well, wait a second. You're really important. You are very important. But and it's that idea, you hear it all the time. Hey, put your oxygen mask on, then you're able to help other people. And yes, we want to be able to give ourselves oxygen so that then we're present for other people without resentment, without pressure. And we're okay saying, I can offer this now. Might not be pleasing to you. Like, that's the people pleasing thing, right? It might not be pleasing to you, but this is what I have to offer. And I believe that this is where imperfect love comes in. For people who truly, deeply love us, who really care about our well-being, they will be accepting and say, I get it. I know you're come from that authentic place and you can't come and do this or do that. I get that. So thank you for having clarity and boundaries. And I accept that. I'll miss you this year. No, you can't fly to Maryland, but okay, I get it. And I really think that that's how we grow that sense of it's okay not to be perfect.
Anyone else have any comments or questions for Dr. Carla before we move on to Marisa? Okay, well, thank you so much, Carla. That was fabulous.
My pleasure.
Wow, this is great. This is great. Thank you for bringing such amazing information to us. Okay, so next up is Dr. Marisa Moeller, and she's going to talk about microsteps to find your balance without overwhelm. So that's, I think, kind of a nice way to end things because we can write down some steps that we're going to take after tonight. Marisa is the owner of the Alternative Therapist Partnership, which offers a number of specialized holistic healing modalities as well as cognitive therapy. She is also the host of the podcast Radiant Living, Inspiring Humanity to Thrive. This is a powerful and inspiring network where those who faced great adversity in their lives explain how they've triumphed. And she is also a Sanctuary Gold sponsor. Thank you for being here with us tonight, Marisa. So you're on. Do you need to share a screen?
Thank you so much for having me. No, not at all.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me, Myrna. Everyone was wonderful so far. As Myrna said, I'm here to speak about microsteps to find balance without overwhelm. And in light of the conversations that the two doctors had before me, I just wanted to tell a quick story first, because a few years ago I worked with this woman. She was in her late 50s. She was a mother, a wife, a daughter, and she was a dedicated professional. And from the outside, she looked like she had the perfect life. Anybody would look and say, oh my gosh, I want that life. She was responsible and reliable. She was successful, and she was always there for everyone. But when she sat down to see me the first time, I could see there was something missing. There was something, her eyes were glazed over. Something was not there. And I asked her what brought her there to me that day. Why did she come to see me? And she said that she felt like she was disappearing. And when I heard that, I thought, that sentence carried the weight of years of what had been unspoken. And that's how I feel that disappearing we will if we don't honor our voice and our vision and our value. And it's easier said than done. And so microsteps, you say, what are microsteps? I have this evening 3 small microsteps. And in this context, microsteps are small, deliberate actions. And that's the key. They're actions, and they bridge an awareness and a transformation. They are gentle yet powerful, and people are always looking for what it is that they have to do. You hear, especially those of us that have clients, you hear like they come to you and they're looking for you to tell them what to do, more or less. And you can't tell them what to do, but they're looking for tools to fix themselves somehow. They want some help. They need you to guide them. And so microsteps that honor the rhythm of a person's evolution can be something simple. And I think that that's the biggest thing here. I think Dr. Carla was saying about the to relish in the imperfection, not seeing yourself as perfect, not striving to be perfect. Like that client of mine, I mean, she, for all intents and purposes, was disintegrating in her life, and she needed to see her value. And sometimes it's easier said than done. So micro steps, they are physical, very real behaviors that you can instill in your day, your week, your month. It's individual. It's based on the time that you have, because more often than not, we hear to be mindful. And how can one be mindful? We understand what mindfulness means, but how many times have we heard, how can I be mindful? I got laundry to do. I have children I have to pick up. I have to get dinner on the table. It's not that easy to do. Or meditation. Everybody would love to meditate, but where do I fit it in? How am I going to do this? These steps that I have, they are simple, they are quick, they are ones that give you a strength to move forward. The first technique, I actually call it the sacred yes ritual. I actually wrote this down here for you. I hope it's not backwards. I'm always concerned that they're backwards, but here it is. It's actually called the sacred yes ritual. And now we've heard a lot about the power of no, right? That boundaries matter and no is a full sentence. But clarity often comes from we um, what we refuse, but not by what we refuse, but by what we accept, what we embrace. The yes is very powerful. Our true alignment begins when we say yes to what genuinely calls to us, right? It's what is truly out there for us, and that we are going to accept it. This little technique here, you just close your eyes, and all you do is ask yourself, what am I truly ready to say yes to today or this evening? So if you think about that, how many times do we even ask that of ourselves? What am I truly ready to say yes to? And then you just quickly, you think of your answer, whisper it, and then write it down. And then this is your sacred yes that you can carry with you, that you are going to commit fully. And you can tell yourself that this is something that you're committing to fully today, this evening. And it can be something as simple as I'm going to read 2 pages in a book that I've been wanting to read forever, right? Because once you're speaking this out loud, if you've done this little step, it kind of reinforces our intention. And when we're writing it down, it actually creates like an energetic contract with our future self, our personal self now, and then our future self, that this is something that you're contracting to do. And it's so easy and so simple. And the second step that I wanted to talk about is, and I call it the micro bravery challenge. And that's exactly what it means. It's a micro bravery. So instead of saving the bravery for the big moments, the big stuff, we cultivate it in micro steps. It's about training our minds and our hearts to choose small acts of courage every day, or again, or every week, or every month. It's whatever your rhythm fits in your life. Here's a simple technique. You choose one small act of bravery that you can do today, this evening. It's something so simple as you might send a message that you've really been forgetting to send, or making that phone call that you just keep putting off, or meeting up, and I'm sure many say this, meeting up with a family member that's often causes static, or puts your back up. Or you can set a gentle boundary, or even ask for help. How many of us ask for help? These are simple acts of bravery. And once we've chosen which one that we want to commit to, we then commit it to the day or the evening. You, through this behavior, rewire your brain for progress, not perfection. As Dr. Carla said, it is literally progress, not perfection. And you find that we all are looking for that. We're looking for those steps to take, right? It dissolves the paralysis of fear, this behavior. We also keep our visions in front of us. They are not waiting in the distance somewhere, like someday maybe I'll do this, or sometime I'm going to meditate, or I'm going to really go to the gym this day, right? Because in essence, bravery is a muscle, right? The more we use it, the stronger it gets. And so we want to put this in practice on a regular basis. And again, regular for you may be different than regular for me, regular for our neighbor. But as long as we begin these small actions to see us over the hump of that inertia that often we feel, or that confusion that we feel, because we're hearing from everyone, we're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to try that, and how do I do this? And then you're so frightened that you don't take a step, you don't move forward, you're you're paralyzed. You're paralyzed with what's the right thing to do. And the reality is there is no right thing to do, right? The right thing for me is different. And it's not even right, right? We have a tendency of using the word right. It's really not right. It's correct for me at the moment. And it may not be correct for my neighbor at the moment. And so that's something that is really important to understand. And then the third thing, which I think is so important, and I call it the echo of the ancestors. And I find that this is something that is so necessary for us to do, because many of us carry these like ancestral echoes of silence, of limitation, of invisibility, right? Often abuse, neglect. And within that lineage, you find great resilience and wisdom, but we don't often go to that. We look at what possibly not the negative, but those lapses in what's occurred in our history. And it could be our long history or our short history in our families, in our extended family, in our spouse's family, because remember that also our significant other, that also takes on the globe of our existence, right? Because if I myself am single by myself, no significant other, I have my ancestral background. Once I'm involved, once I have a partner, we now have our ancestral history that sometimes melds together, sometimes it clashes. But this exercise that I talk about, it actually draws strength from that source, and I think it's so important. I think it's something simple to do, but all you have to do is close your eyes and you imagine one strong, in this instance, say a woman, one strong woman from your lineage, your grandmother or great-grandmother. It could be an aunt, a great-aunt. It could be an unknown ancestor from back in time. And you just sit there a moment, think of her voice. What would her guidance be to you from back then, or in the instance, say with a gentleman, what would your great grandfather's guidance be to you at the moment, for you to follow your dreams, for you to live in the moment, for you not to have stress, for you to live the most radiant life imaginable. And then all you have to do is you place your hands on your heart and you say, I carry that strength within me, and I honor that voice, and I honor my voice and my vision and my value. And I move forward for both of us, and I move forward for all of us. It's something so simple, but yet so strong and so effective. And that whenever you need a reminder, then you can go back to this again. You can pick another relative. These are actionable steps, but not necessarily things that you have to take half an afternoon. You have to get into the vehicle to drive somewhere. And I know that there are traditional methods of journaling and, as I said earlier, meditation and mindfulness and yoga. But many people are so overwhelmed with what they see as a shortness in time that they need micro steps to just get themselves moving. And so this particular thing of the ancestors, I think, builds so much strength in the individual. They feel like they have an army behind them, because you're now grabbing your shield. You're covering yourself with this armor of ancestry, that you're not alone, and you are calling to them for help. You understand what they've gone through. You're listening to their wisdom, their voice, and you're taking it with you, and you're moving forward. And if you practice this on a regular basis, you notice that with consistency comes more strength. So that each one of us has an opportunity to move micro step by micro step forward. And of course, there are a host of other micro steps that you can take. These are just 3 of the simplest things that you can add into your repertoire to begin to feel as if you're doing something. Because how many of us are doers, right? Even in being, right? Don't they tell you that you have to be, but that's an action, right? Many of us have to act to be because we don't even know how to be. So when you're looking for answers, you're looking for something that you feel you're supposed to be doing. So this is why the micro step is so important. in our, I guess, our evolution towards living a radiant life. What other way to do it? Of course, there's nothing wrong with all the other things, the other techniques, and you'll find that as you strengthen your voice, your value, that you can go to those other things, right? You can incorporate them in your life. You can take the time to do maybe yoga 3 times a week, or you can take the time to squeeze in meditation on a regular basis, say the last thing in the evening before you go to bed or first thing in the morning. It's just that for many of us, we're paralyzed with where to start and the time that it takes. And yes, the guilt is there, and these negative thoughts, the negative programming that's there. I think there's something like we have over 60,000 thoughts per day, and 3/4 of them are negative thoughts. So how do you battle that, right? How does one find the wherewithal to battle all of that? You have to start with micro steps. And the importance of them is that you can pick and choose what you want. You might not be able to do them all. Certainly, as I said earlier, you can build up to all of the other types of techniques. But when you're so downtrodden at the moment, and I always say that the best thing that we've ever seen was the actress Roseanne Barr when she created her show. We discovered that, hey, guess what? We're going to shuffle along in our pajamas one day because that's how we feel, and it's perfectly fine. Or we haven't cleaned the house because our kids are running in and their friends are coming in, and my husband brought somebody in and the dog is dirty. That's life, and that's what goes on. And so how can you then be in a tranquil environment and carry yourself away out of it? Sometimes you can't. And so you need to be able to take a moment to do a micro step. And there are also out of the box micro steps that, those are topics for another conversation. And you can also, as you move into the larger actions of meditation, mindfulness, yoga, you can go into those out of the box micro steps first. It's usually a progression. So you can start with the smaller ones, and then you can move into some of the different ones. And there are people who do them, and they find that they're fun and that they enjoy them, and they begin to put them into their repertoire for the week or the month, because again, they feel like they're doing something. They actually are seeing results. And it's not that they're taking the time, you have to take the time to sit down and journal. It's lovely to journal, but how many people really can do that consistently? I've heard many people say, oh, I have to get back to it, or the gratitude journal. I haven't written in my gratitude journal for so long, I really need to sit down and do it. It becomes another task. You want things that are quick and easy, and it reprograms you, and you don't even know that you're being reprogrammed. It makes you start to feel joyful, and you're not even understanding why you're feeling joyful, but you're adding all of these positives into your life. And I think that that's some of the most important things that we can do to value ourselves. And I know that we've heard this, the old adage, especially with women, that, when you think about yourself or you pamper yourself, that's, being selfish. That's being self-centered. That's not thinking of others. That's, spending too much time on yourself. Then those feelings of guilt come in, right? Or you're guilted upon, right? It's perpetrated upon you by the outside world, which is another thing. But you need to make sure that you feel that value inside yourself. And how do you do that? That's why micro steps are so important, because if you don't start with the micro step, you're never going to start. Or more often than not, you're never going to start. And you know what? Working on yourself is difficult. It is very difficult to do. And it does need action. But those actions don't have to be difficult. Those actions don't have to be long, arduous, drawn out. They can be small steps towards bigger steps. And you celebrate along the way. You celebrate that, oh my gosh, I finally got that email out. Or, oh, I finally called that relative. I dreaded it, but I did it. And that's the best. That's the best feeling for you, right? It's like you've conquered Mount Everest, because that's your Mount Everest in your life. And I think that a lot of us don't see that. As I think Dr. Carla was saying, you're looking at the other people, and I think Dr. Sherry brought that in too. It's that the feelings of, how you compare. How do I compare what, right? How do I compare? How do I look to other people? And honestly, let's face it, how many people really pay attention to what we're doing? They're so wrapped up with their own lives. Their lives are so full, and they have all to do to take care of their life. They're not really looking at what we're doing, and they're certainly not caring that we're trying to compare ourselves to them. So those things take long um, to work through, and they can be difficult to work through. So we need to have the positives. As I said, the positive, the yes affirmation. I mean, how many times do you hear that? The sacred yes, right? I mean, most of it is no, right? We've learned that. As I said earlier, we've learned that, especially nowadays, that, as I said, no is a full sentence. But how many times we say yes to ourselves? I mean, do you remember any time you say yes to yourself? And I'm not saying yes like to the family, right? That you have a family obligation. Yes, we're going to go. Or, a child has a game, and yes, we're going to go. So you're saying yes to them. Have you said yes to yourself? When do you say yes to yourself? Do you ever say yes to yourself? Those are things that we don't even think about, right? And so, and then how do you say yes to yourself without feeling guilty, without chastising yourself, without feeling like you've ruined everybody else's time, everybody else's day, everybody else's event? These are things that are very difficult to overcome unless you do micro steps, and because there's nowhere else to go without the micro step. And it's very difficult. As I said, it's very difficult to work through, our change of programming. It's, once again, it takes action
and practice. Yeah.
Yes, right. And so, how are we going to do that? You have to do the micro steps. And you'll find there are many out there, many, many micro steps. And some work for some people and others work for other people. And you can pick and choose eventually. You learn about them, you build up your arsenal, and then you pick and choose what it is that you want to use. And there are, as a matter of fact, I'm actually putting together a list of them because I find that micro steps are important. I'm putting a list together to some of the out-of-the-box ones and some of the traditional ones that people can actually use, put in their tool belt and take with them. That this way they can work throughout the day or the week. And again, important to celebrate the little things once you've done it. Once you've said yes to yourself, celebrate that. Don't chastise yourself. Celebrate it. To throw confetti if you want. Throw blow the horn that you've done it. These are actually full micro actions that you can take to further what you've done already in your initial micro step, right? Because how many times would we do that? Right? You've said yes to yourself. You're really gonna blow the horn, the blow tickler. Are you going to do that or not? Nobody's going to do that. But you see, if you do it, you smile, you laugh, and you've actually recognized and appreciated what you've done for yourself.
Well, I love this that you've done here with this presentation, Marisa, and that you've made these more meditative micro steps less scary. Because I know I've talked to people that meditation, it sounds good, but I don't know how to do that. You know what I mean? It's that scary, only monks do that, or people that are really schooled in alternative therapy or this. And these kinds of things that you're talking about sound easy and quick. They're manageable. And it all goes back to self-awareness, right?
Yeah. And then you can, right. And then you can move on. You can move on to meditation. You can move on to yoga. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're not fearful to do those other things once you've done the smaller micro step, because it's almost as if, it's another task to you during the day or the week, right?
Yeah.
And if you view it as a task, then it becomes a task. But if you view it as a micro step, as pleasantry, then it becomes a pleasantry. You have to turn it all around. And I think it's easier to turn around the micro steps than it is to turn around much of the negative programming. It becomes too daunting a task to do.
Well, I think it's a great idea for you to put that list on your blog. I know you have your blog.
Yes. I mean, some of them are really out of the box, but you know what? I've had people come back and say that some of those out of the box ones, they've enjoyed them because
And
it was
it's
so out
as
of
you
character.
said, though, right? Something different will work for everybody. Everybody's
Yeah,
different on what
yeah,
works for them.
yeah.
Does
It's the
anybody,
fact that you do
yeah,
take that step. Yeah.
does anybody have any comments or things they would like to ask or comment on from Marissa's presentation?
Marisa, I just really appreciate that piece that you were talking about. And I was making notes about the armor of ancestry and our ancestors. And I never thought about, I've never thought about that. And I thought about things like intergenerational transmission of violence and this and that. But when you look at it the way you put it, which I've never heard of before, so that really felt very, very powerful to me. And I'm actually going to listen to that piece of the once it's live, Myrna. I'm going to listen to Marissa's talk about that because it is so. I can really see and feel energetically how that could be so powerful for the positive and so powerful for the negative. That if we're not mindful of how we're embracing that, it could really, wow. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I think often as therapists, right, we are trained to understand the negative, and our task is to assist people in working through the negative. But how powerful it is to have them see the positive, because even in the grief, even in the sadness, even in the negativity of the past, there are words of wisdom. And if you listen and you hear them, and then you put them on as an armor, you have an army. Right? Think about it. You're going out into the world with your army of ancestors. This is powerful and it's positive. It's enlightening at the same time that you don't have to think about the negative. The negative was there. It was something that occurred. Oftentimes negative is perpetrated upon individuals. So that's a whole other story. But when you have the power behind you of ancestry and you're moving forward with it, think how powerful it really is.
You just made me think of something. I had a dream a couple weeks ago. I've been having lots of dreams lately. It's like my psyche's making up for whatever. But it was this house where I was in a house, and I'm Jungian trained, so I'm usually pretty good at my dreams. And there were different layers in the house, and I was running frantically because all of my aunts were there. It was all women, but the pictures from the past that I was used to, all of the old pictures were missing, and they had all created new current lives. And you made me think of that in a different light, that it is this army of my aunts. Oh my goodness, Marisa, thank you so much. It's like this army of this female energy. Not to say that I won't have a dream about the masculine figures in my life, but you've really given me a refreshed look at that dream. So thank you. Wow, how powerful is that?
That's
Quite
good.
welcome. Yeah, it works well for clients.
Do you want to talk about them a little bit?
I
have a couple of them. They're so pretty.
Jay, this is what you'll get.
Okay.
And they're so cool because as I was working on them, I don't even know why I had this drive to create them, like why. And then I realized it was just a simple way because a lot of people don't like reading an entire self-work book or something like that. So you can, and when I was experimenting with them, once they came out, before I started putting them out for sale, I was playing with them with some of my friends, and they're like, oh my goodness, we're going to blow through this deck in 45 minutes. I said, okay, great. So we pulled out one card just randomly. So they're divided into feelings, thought, mindset, energy, and action. And that card, just that one card, stimulated conversation amongst the three of us for over an hour. And so the nice part is you can pick one, and here I just picked the one that came up. It's actions. Self-love grows as we continue to think, act, and live in ways that are congruent with what the ever-evolving internal self truly wants. It's never too late to create the changes that allow us to bring the power of authentic, freeing love, self-love into our lives. And then there's a prompt. And this one says, do you feed yourself a compassionate, emotional, and mental diet that fosters genuine self-love?
And great question.
Isn't it great? And so you can put it out and reflect on it during the day. You can talk to it, talk to a friend, romantic partner, whatever it is. And so what I found, it's so funny because my husband is very he doesn't like deep conversations. So if I pull out one, he's like, she's doing it. So anyway, they're so much fun because they're just as light or as deep as you want.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just love them. And the artist who did them is actually back east. He did the artwork. And so anyway, that's what you'll be getting in the mail. So you can give Myrna your address, and then I'll have them shipped off to you through Amazon.
Awesome.
And you will get them. You'll get them. So congratulations. I hope you love them. They're super fun.
I got a bag with cards, but I think a few of the people that were traveling may have had a hard time. I don't know if we were sharing screen and I may have missed admittance, but that's okay, because there's going to be a great finished product of all of this, folks. And I just have to say, before I close, do any of our three presenters have any last thoughts that they want to leave listeners with? Let's start with Sherry. Any last thought, Sherry, that you want to leave listeners with?
Oh, I'm just so inspired by what my colleagues have shared tonight, and I've learned so much. And Marisa, thank you for talking about the micro bravery challenge. I just love that. And, we all need that every day. We need to take those little steps, as you said, every day. And that really is important for our own growth, to take those actions every day. So thanks so much for sharing that. It's just been so wonderful learning so much from you wonderful women.
Dr. Carla, anything you want to say? Any last?
I just really appreciate the presenters. Dr. Sherry, I was taking notes even though we've met before and shared podcast time, I was taking loads of notes I can't wait to reflect on, because as you all know, we spend so much time giving and giving and giving to others that having a chance, I did not expect to be taking notes. So you both have given me so much. So thank you, thank you, thank you. What a surprise. I just got fed some lovely energy. So thank you.
Marisa, any final thoughts?
Yes, actually, I'd like to say something to actually the audience, to everybody. I want to say that we need to honor our voice because it's our truth. We need to honor our vision because it's our path, and we need to honor our value because it's our foundation. And in light of the world and what's happening, we are really here to rise and to thrive and to be forces of light in the world. So I really urge and plead everyone to illuminate the world with their light because it's important.
Very good. Well, I would like to close by saying this workshop with the three of you is just unbelievable. I cannot believe the amount of educational material, ideas, steps to take that our listeners are going to get from this. I am going to plug this big time. I hope you guys will share with your communities as well. And I know that loads of people will see it. And I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate all of you very, very much. And I'll close as I always do by wishing all of our readers and our listeners good health, happiness, and continued inspiration. Thank you so much for listening to this very important workshop. Take care.